Hello, hello. So, I wanted to really work on something that would be socially valuable and that would spread the awareness. So, I was thinking about why don't I work on a application that would be helpful for medical awareness, right? And then I was thinking about one of the deadliest diseases that have been termed previously, but now without the awareness, people are not much aware about this disease. So that's the reason why people still have a kind of notion that it is so deadly and all that, but you can still live with that. And I was thinking about why don't I give that awareness with one of the website. So here I was thinking about creating a web application for HIV awareness, and here is where I have created a HIV awareness website. This application is completely on Angular. I'll come back to the architecture part, the deployment part, so on and so forth. But just focus on the application first. Let's go what exactly this application is or this website is all about. So this website is about the HIV awareness, as I said, and it has all the information about understanding what exactly HIV is, what are the different stages of HIV, when it becomes AIDS, how exactly HIV spreads, the basic information, right? Then which are the ways we can prevent the HIV? Something as well we haven't really known much about pre-ep, pre-exposure prophylaxis and post-exposure prophylaxis as well. Having that information, what to do when we are diagnosed with, and then living with HIV, what exactly a life looks like when you have an HIV, and what are the precautions what are the measures that you can take to live with it, because right now the medical advancement has happened such that you can just have to take just like a normal pill, right? Like a vitamin pill, you take one pill at a day and you're good with that. And there is this ART therapy or antiretroviral therapy that you can take, which is basically the medicine part, and you need to live a healthy lifestyle as well, and keep checking the CD4 counts regularly. So also I was thinking about a couple of motivation videos as well, because there are so many champs who is just not living but they are thriving, they're thriving with HIV. So I was like, why don't I embed those information as well? And what are the latest medical advancement that has happened in 2026? Even for that I was trying to think. And then the other resources or the other links that would be useful. Overall, this was the web application which I have implemented. Coming back from this application now, since we are not just interested with the web application, we are also interested in the overall IT world of it, the development world, the deployment world. So as I said, so this application is, maybe I'll quickly turn on the laser first. So this application is maybe I'll zoom in a bit. I have not made it much fancy. That means that it's an end user, as you have seen. I don't want to buy a domain name again. So I have used the cloud CDN domain name itself, and that hits your CDN, the CloudFront part. If you're not aware about the CloudFront, if you're not aware about the SCMs, the S3s, and all that, I have already covered in my previous video. So you can have a look for that. But coming back, not to diverge from the topic, coming back, it is very simple. Hitting the CDN, from CDN, it goes to S3. In S3, we have deployed, okay, this is no more a portfolio. I just copy pasted from my chuck. It is HIV awareness. Okay. So this is the HIV awareness application or the Angular application which is deployed in S3, right? Simple. So this is the deployed part. Not to take much time here, I could enhance this. Maybe if you comment that to release an enhanced version of this application, I can have the SCMs deployed for it. I can have the Route 53 as well before the CDN it hits. I can do all that, which I've already done with other videos that I have already told. But here I was not focusing on the infra part, For me, the major part is about the development process. I was more focusing on to introduce the concepts of what exactly happens with the webhooks, what exactly happens with the EC2s. Maybe I'll zoom out a bit so it will be much more easier to view. So what exactly happens from the CI perspective, the continuous integration perspective? What exactly happens with the continuous deployment perspective? So I was more interested to that, right? So the context is more now, once the deployed application is available, it is deployed on S3, it is consuming from CDN, every cloud front cloud delivery network, whichever is the nearest one, from there it is getting delivered. Very quite simple. But what happens during the development process, right? You have So what happens during the development process? We follow something called continuous integration and continuous deployment. You might have heard about it, but I would like to connect with, um, there are multiple ways you can do that. You can use the GitHub Actions, so on and so forth. But I would like to really cover about in this tutorial about something how you can do with in a servered approach. Similarly, you can do with the serverless approaches as well for the build part, for the integration part. But here I wanted to use with the servered approach. So starting with, to go from left to right, in the VS Code, let's say, let me quickly open. So in the VS Code, you write your application, right? We will look into the code later. So in the VS Code, we write the application. Once from the development side, once we write this application, what we do is we commit the code and push the code. When we push this code, it goes to GitHub, right? It goes to our GitHub repository. Once it is available in the GitHub repository, what we try to do is, we try to link the webhook. So what does this webhook means, right? So if you, I think you guys are already aware, but maybe just to quickly recap, if you go under the settings, under the webhook, you can link the webhooks, right? You can link the webhook from the EC2 instance. So it's very simple. It's quite straightforward. Maybe I'll quickly edit it. It's quite straightforward. You have the payload URL slash GitHub webhook, and then you have the, I have disabled the SSL verification right now because it is HTTP, right? The public IP address of my EC2. What do I mean by that is, okay, maybe I'll not jump the ladder. What I'll try to say is, so whenever the code is pushed to GitHub, right, at that time there is a trigger that happens. A trigger happens to the EC2. How does it knows that there is a trigger happen? It is via webhook, if I can summarize it, right? So EC2 is where we compute. It's a compute engine, right? It's like one of the operating system, let's say, one of the small operating system. Maybe I'm trying to use Linux part. So it is the operating of the compute engine. In this compute engine, we are trying to run something called Jenkins, right? In this compute engine, we are trying to run Jenkins. But for this compute engine, we also has some sort of a volume stored, where when we run this compute engine, we need to store this information, the configurations, the data part, right? The code part, so on and so forth. So that has been stored inside this EBS volume, right? It's a volume. It's like the network volume that you want to store the data with. So EC2 with its Amazon EBS, the volume which we have, and then overall this is present in one subnet. What do you mean by subnet? It's just think like you have a big network, right? That's called VPC. In this big network, you have multiple subnets, right? This network has been divided into multiple smaller chunks of the network, smaller groups or smaller areas, which is called subnet. And I'm using one of the subnet. In one of the subnet, I'm running my EC2 instance and EBS. Just to give you a quick overview, it looks something like this, right? For this specific VPC, in this VPC, the network, I have six subnets, three, six, yeah, six subnets under under different AZs, availability zones, right? For US East 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, and 1F. So under my availability zone of US East 1, sorry, did I say different availability zone? Sorry, my bad. It is the same availability zone. US East 1. And in this availability zone, I have 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, 1F. And I'm trying to use one of the subnet right now. So 1F I'm trying to use. And with that, that's the reason why it is 2D8, whatever, huh? So if I can quickly go, so to this VPC, to this subnet, this is the subnet which is available, and this is connected to my VPC. And if I go back to my EC2 instance, so this is my EC2 instance. In this EC2 instance, subnet part. So this is the public IP networking. This is the subnet 2D8. Yeah. So in this subnet, in this availability zone, US East 1F, as I said, in this availability zone, we have this specific subnet. Okay. Clear with the networking part, the VPC and the subnet, and the EC2 instance that is running the compute engine. And this compute engine has been mount or attached or mounted with the EBS, right? The volume. So the volume is here. This is the volume. This is a type of GP3, 30 GB of storage that it has, and IOPS, input output operations that it can do is 3000 IOPS with a throughput of 125. So this is the detail of this EC2 and the EBS. What it does basically, it is where my Jenkins runs, right? In Jenkins, it is a process or a tool, let's say, where I can have the CI and CD process enabled. Quite a famous tool, I would say. There are other alternatives as well, which we will speak later. But yeah, with Jenkins, you can do that. Now, when you build your application in Jenkins, when you click the build now, it creates, it spins up an agent, right? It spins up an agent, and then it would run the Jenkins file. First, it will try to go to the GitHub repository. It would pull the latest source code or the version at which you want, whichever the version you want to pull, even that can be pulled. Basically, you need to define your stages, and in that you go to the Git repository, pull the code right in your Jenkins, and then in your agent that is trying to run this Jenkins file. We will go in the code, how it happens overall, how a Jenkins file is read, and how a specific agent reads it from stage by stage, that how it happens. So yeah, overall, this is what the EC2 compute engine is running, right? And now we are trying to say that it completes the CI and CD part. What do I mean by that? So in the CI part, in the continuous integration part, whenever there is a new code which we commit to the main branch, at that point of time in prod, I would like to integrate that and deploy that to my deployed application. I'm keeping it very simple. I'm having just one environment. In standard industry, you don't work in this fashion. You have different environments, or or you have a brand strategy, like a trunk based brand strategy, where you have main and then you have different tags that you create, either with that approach, or you have typical dev, val, and prod approach, the three environments that you try to have, and you let this three environments spin. But here I'm trying to keep it very simple. Trying to keep it only one environment prod. So in the deployment part, so in the integration part, your latest committed codes get pushed into Git repository, which has been web hooked. As I was trying to say, the web hooked part. Um, so the web hooked part, it would listen um, to this specific webhook. That means that whenever there is a trigger that happens, it calls or invokes this EC2 instance. So this EC2 instance would then run in this EC2 instance. There is this Jenkins file which is actively listening, Jenkins tool which is actively listening, which spins up an agent, and this agent would pull the code from the Git, right, and then try to run the Jenkins file step by step, and then it does the integration, it does the deployment. In the deployment part, we are trying to deploy it. We're deploying the specific version of the Angular, that maybe let's say the latest version, to the S3. That's what we said previously. It would be deployed, let's say the static asset or the dist folder would be deployed. Similarly, we also need to do one more step, that we want to invalidate the CDN cache in for our CloudFront part. Even that would be performed as different stages, right? Overall, this is the development process which I was quite interested or keen to explain here as well. Not to forget, here we are using, maybe just to give you a link, here we are using the current approach. What we are trying to do is our source control tool, right? Our source control tool is GitHub, where we are trying to version different sort of code. But you can also use the AWS code commit, very specific AWS services. For the CI pipeline, we are using Jenkins. For the CD pipeline, we are using the Jenkins agents. Um, for the static hosting, we are using the S3, where our application is hosted. For the CDN, we are using the AWS CloudFront. And for the DNS, right now it is not there, but we can similarly have it for the Route 53 part as well. But if you're very keen about using AWS services, you can change that. You can change the GitHub. Instead of using GitHub, you can use AWS code commit for your source control. For your CI, you can use the AWS code pipeline. And for the CD, you can use the AWS code build. Why am I not choosing this, rather some other tools, the Jenkins or the GitHub? Because these are quite famous out there in the market. That doesn't mean that this is the best way, right? You can use your own CI/CD tools. The big advantage of using the AWS service would be that for the code pipeline and the code build, this works like a typical serverless. That means that you no need to have the EC2 instance always running. Rather, or you need to write a script that would turn on and off the EC2 instance. Rather, you can have the CI and CD with code pipeline and code build, which acts like a serverless. That means that whenever there is a new deployment or the code present, only then you spin up the compute engine or the compute engine with code pipeline and code build. You don't always turn the EC2 instance on. Right now, it is working in this way, right? So there are advantages and disadvantages as well. For a big corporate company where you always have the deployment process going on, you need to have something like this sort of a process. But if you have a small application, small multiple applications, and you are okay to get it bonded with the AWS services, you can easily do it with code pipeline and code build. Okay, coming back to overall this, um, before going to the code walkthrough, I'm just checking if I missed something. I'll turn off this laser, guys. Okay, I'll quickly check if there is something which I've missed. Yeah, the bucket is created. Yeah, this is the bucket which is there. The CDN distribution network is this one, where we have the distribution domain name, and I can click this domain name. It opens the complete application, right? The CDN I've explained, the EC2, EBS, CDNs, S3s looks good, as well as the key pair. Nothing fancy, but it is just this key pair I'm trying to use to connect locally, right, from my local terminal. Nothing fancy. Okay, I'll go to the code now, the most interesting part. In the code, as I said, this is an Angular application. So the dist folder, under dist folder, there is browser, which is what is our dist, the complete files that we want to deploy under S3. Um, the complete source code lives in this source file. Under apps, you have all the different components, the navigation bar, the hero component, the header, the footer, about, what are the different pages that we have, the routing, the different assets that we want to have, the five icon at the top that you want to look for the different styles, so on and so forth. I would not like to go, it is already pushed. You can go have a look on my GitHub profile itself directly, right? The complete code is here. Yeah, and also I've mentioned about how you can do a manual pipeline creation. I will try to explain this. Maybe I'll go. We can do it together. One more time. As well, I have linked about the webhooks, how you can, what you need to do to integrate the webhooks, right? What you need to install, which plugin that you need to install in Jenkins, how do you need to any what kind of configuration enable that you need to do for your pipeline. Under pipeline you need to go to triggers, and under trigger you need to go to GitHub look hook triggers for git scm pooling that needs to be enabled. And then in the Jenkins file, in the Jenkins webhook syntax, you need to put your payload followed by in the payload URL you need to put HTTP followed by your public IP, the public IP that you have for your EC2 instance. This one, the public IP that you have for your EC2 instance. Maybe I'll turn on the laser. Maybe that was good, I guess. So this is the public IP for your EC2 instance. Um, where did I go? Here, public IP for the EC2 instance. And then as I said, disabled SSL is disabled false. Since don't have AWS SCM, the certificate manager for my CDN part, that's why it is disabled. And then you add the webhook. Okay, coming back to my code. As I said, the code is available. You can have a look, the complete code. Nothing fancy there. I'm more interested as well to quickly go into the Terraform code. In the Terraform code, again, we have the main.terraform. From the main.terraform is where we are trying to say which S3 bucket, for the S3 bucket, what is the site for the S3 bucket configurations, let's say, or the infrastructure that is needed. That means that the access for the bucket, public access, should be blocked. It should not be publicly available, right? So you're blocking that public ACLs and the ACL policy. You're enabling, um, again, what else? So what are the different sites that is enabled? Server side encryption configuration, the cloud formation access control site for the OCS, then the cache policy that you want to enable. Then comes the CloudFront distribution, the CDN part. How do you do that specific configuration for the CDN, right? The distribution service that you want to have. And then the dedicated IAM policy that is required for your CloudFront part, and the bucket policies as well. This is your Jenkins files, where you have your data source, Jenkins data user data file, where I was trying to see how I can bootstrap some of the required dependencies. No more yum, rather I'm using DNF to spin up the required node versions, required whatever the required things that is needed. I'm trying to spin that or bootstrap that up before the Jenkins has started. So that's where the Jenkins user data.sch file is there, which would be spinned up. If you see, this would be spinned up, Jenkins user data. You see, this would be spinned up here. So whenever you are trying to spin up the EC2 instance, at that point of time, a specific AMI is created, the user data, it tries to load this user data, Jenkins user data.sch file, and then the EC2 instance is created. Then, as I said, it should be under a security group. Even that needs to be taken care about. Then the dedicated IAM policy that is needed for the Jenkins S3 CloudFront, even that has been enabled. The IAM role for the Jenkins EC2 instance, even that has been configured. And the basic subnet part, the IAM part, the data part has also been, the data source as well has been updated. Variables. I'll come back to output later. What are the different variables that needs to be configured? For example, as I said, the volume, the EBS volume is 30 GB. Um, Maybe in the next tutorial we'll see how we can reduce the cost optimization. Even the EC2 instance part is 3T medium. That means the compute engine is medium. We can see how we can reduce that to, I don't know, small. Maybe micro is too less, but we can try it a bit. We can see how the micro will behave, how the small will behave, and which git branch that you want to configure from the main. That means whenever the trigger happens, which branch that it needs to look forward for. All this variables that we have. The versioning, which version of HashiCorp Terraform that we want to use. What is our provider? The cloud, AWS. Nothing fancy. Coming back to the output.terraform file. Um, Once the setup is done, how do you want to access the Jenkins, right? How do you do that? So this step has been written here. Basically, if you see the README as well, maybe I'll quickly go and show you guys first, not to confuse you. So let's say the instance, the EC2 instance. This is the EC2 instance. Now I want to quickly connect from my local. So what do I do? I think I have already written the code. Yeah. So I ensure that SSH, I'm trying to enable the SSH hyphen I. I've downloaded the key pair parameter, right? The PEM file. I've downloaded the PEM file. Basically, the key pair, under the key pair, I've downloaded the PEM file. So this PEM file will help me, uh, followed by the username EC2 user and the IP address, of the EC2. I think the IP address was 98.92.85.45. Yeah, I'm in. Now I can do certain, I can see my Jenkins is running. So here is where I can see sudo. Maybe I'll turn off the laser. Because of the laser it is coming. So the Jenkins is running, the Jenkins server is running. So what I can do is, this was just to ensure that the Jenkins is running. So what I can do is, I can go to Jenkins, which is nothing but, it's simple. You can go to Jenkins by following the command, following the HTTP URL. So the HTTP URL followed by the IP address followed by 8080, right? I think the IP address was 98.92.85.45. Yeah. I think I've already logged in. Yeah, I've already logged in. Oh, I'll quickly enter the required password. I would not like to do this here, just so that I just need to run the cat command. Basically, I'm logging in with admin. For the password, I need to do the cat. Um, if I can go here, I think it is already there in the README, guys. So if I do sudo cat initial admin password, I'm using the same admin password. I'll quickly hide this. Coming back to here, sign in. I'll clear the command prompt just so that it is not visible. Yeah, so the Jenkins stage is running here. So Jenkins pipeline is running here. Now you see the the run that has happened was #7, right? So now what we will do is we will completely test the complete end-to-end application. That means that we would try to write a code that would commit into, and then we commit and push into our GitHub, and that would spin up the EC2 in EC2 instance, that would spin up a specific agent with Jenkins, and then it will deploy, right? Maybe what I'll try to do is I'll try to do some sort of a tweak in the main application. um, npm run, what was it, start or serve, start. It's running in localhost 4200, right? Now this is running in localhost 4200, World Health Initiative, right? This is the deployed version. This is the local version. What I'll try to do is, instead of World Health Awareness, right, I'll try to change this text. So instead of World Health Initiative, I'll say World Health, oh, awareness. If I can spell this correct spelling, is it a spelling mistake? Okay. So now locally it is World Health Awareness. Here it is World Health Initiative, the deployed version. So what I'll do is I'll commit this code. I have done some git ignores, guys. Don't worry about that. But I've just changed the initiative to awareness, and then some other formatting has happened because of my prettier. Change from initiative to awareness, right? This is what we did. I did a string change. So this has pushed the code. Interestingly, I want to trace it because I'm more interested with that. So I'll go to webhooks. Last delivery was success. I'll click edit. I'll see recent deliveries. You see, 2132, it got triggered, which is good. It got successfully triggered to my Jenkins. As I said, it triggered to the Jenkins in my EC2. There is a new build that is happening. A agent has picked it up and a new build that has been created. In this build, we'll go under this build, we'll go to console output, and you can see all the different stages that is running. So, oh, I did not explain about the Jenkins file, my bad. Under the Jenkins files, we have, I'll quickly minimize this. By the way, it is successful. It has deployed it. Just to let you know, check out the SCM, install the dependencies that are needed, build the complete Angular application, deploy it to S3, which was this specific code part, right? Deploy to S3 as well. And the next stage was invalidate the CloudFront, the CDN cache part. This was the one. That's it. And then clean the things up. Nothing fancy. I'll close this, minimize this. Okay, this has been deployed. I need to see whether in my CDN it has changed. Instead of initiative, I need awareness here. You see, now it has changed to awareness. So the overall process, I think it's clear that you do some changes in the code, the complete CI/CD pipeline has been followed, and it does the changes accordingly, right? That's how ideally the standard way of doing it is. In the upcoming videos, if you comment on the upcoming video stating that you want to see it much more enhanced, you want to see it much more enhanced in terms of SCMs, enhanced in terms of not using the webhooks with HTTP, rather HTTPS, enhanced in terms of Route 53, enhanced in terms of whatnot and whatnot. If you keep letting me know, I'll keep refactoring this. I'll make this as resource development resource version process version 1, and if you keep letting me know, I'll have version 2, version 3, so on and so forth of the same development process. And then if you're interested, we can completely scratch this up. Rather the servered approach, we can go with the serverless approach as well. So let me know if you're interested. I'll be very, very happy to work as well on the same. Thank you.